SLT speed up සවාරිය සමගින් සද්දන්ත වාසි රැල්ලක්. අලුත් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සබඳතා සඳහා පළමු මාස දෙක පුරා data double speed up with SLT.
A widening gap. Northern Chief Minister criticises the leadership of the Tamil National Alliance, saying the people have lost faith in it. Economic matters. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe pinpoints the cause of Sri Lanka's economic woes.
So what we've been trying to do from 2015 is to restructure the economy to go back into the tradable sectors.
Spread of development. The governor of the central bank convinced that the Hambantota port project will spread development to untouched regions.
So this is not just a port lease. It's about transforming a lagging region in the country where we've had youth unrest on two occasions.
Increasing accessibility. 10 expensive cancer drugs along with 13 other medicinal drugs reduced from midnight. Returning after a hiatus. Fast bowler Lasith Malinga recalled to the one-day squad after a year's absence. Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Kanaika. Now let's start with the local stories. The fourth summit of the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multisectoral, Technical and Economic Cooperation, worked off in Kathmandu of Nepal, came to a close today. Following its conclusion, President Maithripala Sirisena commenced a two-day state visit in the country. After engaging in religious observances at the ancient site of Lumbini, the Sri Lankan head of state held bilateral discussions with the Prime Minister of Nepal.
A Nepal-Sri Lanka Trade, Tourism and Investment Summit was held in Kathmandu last evening and President Maithripala Sirisena graced the event. The summit was organized by the Institute for Strategic and Socio-Economic Research of Nepal, where detailed discussions were held to increase the cooperation between fields of trade and tourism and investment that can benefit both countries. In the meantime, President Maithripala Sirisena also joined religious observances of the Pashupatinath Hindu Temple Complex, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Kathmandu last evening. Meanwhile, President Sirisena arrived in Lumbini and engaged in religious observances. The authorities had made arrangements to provide President Sirisena access to the sacred site where Prince Siddhartha took his first step. The opportunity afforded to the President is a rare opportunity which is not usually given to heads of state visiting Lumbini. Later, President Sirisena visited the Maya Devi temple located in sacred Lumbini, where the visiting head of state was gifted a special memento. The President then visited the Sri Lanka Mahaviharaya, also located in sacred Lumbini, and paid homage to the sacred relics. President Sirisena then made an observational tour of the Dutugamunu Pilgrims' Rest, which is constructed for the benefit of visiting Sri Lankan devotees, and inquired into the needs. A Nas sapling was planted at the premises to mark the visit of the President.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasises the importance of developing the tradable sector in order to resolve issues surrounding the country's economy. Speaking at the 19th Annual General Meeting of the Tea Exporters Association yesterday, the Premier said that over the last decade, the non-tradable sector had developed and it is time to give more attention to the tradable sector.
So we have to think of this industry of how do we refashion ourselves. And as the Minister said, we also need some consensus in the tea industry. But if you haven't got consensus in blending, that is no reason that we should not look at all the other aspects. More than that, the problem that we face today is in the last decade, our economy has expanded in the non-tradable sector. So all those who are in the non-tradable sector made their money. Now you're asking all those in the tradable sector to pay off the debts. That is the actual situation we are in. So what we've been trying to do from 2015 is to restructure the economy to go back into the tradable sectors, to expand the tradable goods, whether it's for the local market or for the export market. More so for the export market. So we are moving away from non-tradables into tradables. So when you're doing that, so what we've done one is that we've got the GSP back so that we could get our apparel industry to expand, to go up market and allow the low end, which we can't compete with wages, to go out into Myanmar, Bangladesh and other places. So we have to innovate. Similarly, now we are looking at the tourism industry. The short-term tourism is the one that's going to make us more money, but it has to be value-added. And they have got now all the homestays, and the tourism industry faces the same challenge which the tea industry did when smallholders are becoming panned in their sectors. So we've got to look at our plantations, our export crops in the same way. Treat them as tradable goods. Maybe we may not be able to give tax concessions, but we must look at other ways of funding and other help that we can give you. So it has to be a change. It can't come overnight because our first priority still is to pay our debts.
Now, Minister of Finance Mangala Samarira says that highest debt repayments the country had to pay out since independence is recorded this year. Now, speaking at the CEO's forum held in Colombo last evening, the minister said the amount of debt repayments amounts to 1.9 trillion rupees for this year. Speaking at the same forum, the Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, expressed positive sentiments over the Hambantota Port project and its potential.
In fact, in recent times in Sri Lanka, the perception of development has become somewhat unclear. Development has become associated generally with ports, airports, expressways, power plants and other mega infrastructure initiatives. If a port is built which does not generate economic activity or an airport that does not attract any commercial flights, it may of course increase the GDP, but that I feel cannot be considered development. Development, to define succinctly, is the process by which a nation improves the economic, political and social well-being of all its peoples. I believe for a country to develop, the two most important pillars on development that must be achieved are democracy, and for a country like Sri Lanka, with a history of ethnic tension, the pillar of reconciliation. This year records the highest debt repayment since independence. Approximately, we are expected to pay rupees 1.9 trillion rupees this year as debt repayment. Nearly 82 of these repayments are from the pre-2015 era. And of course, the next 2 years are going to be even more difficult, and we have to pay nearly 4 trillion rupees for 2019 and 2020.
The Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, speaking at the forum, expressed views about the free trade agreements.
I.e., the larger country does far, far more than the smaller country. How does that happen? When it comes to goods, the negative list of the smaller country is much, much longer than the negative list of the large country. Similarly, when it comes to services, the positive list of the larger country is much longer than the positive list of the small country. And so there are these well-tried techniques that can be built into these agreements, which can give the smaller country the opportunity to gain from these agreements. So obviously one has to negotiate to make sure that our interests are positive agenda is pursued vigorously, as well as our defensive agenda as well.
He also went on to give his views on the Hambantota Port project. Now,
I've also been somewhat confused by all the debate we had about the Hambantota Port lease, because actually that is much, much more than leasing a port. 70 years after independence, the people of Monragala and Uva have very little. We've done very little for them. The people of Hambantota have some assets, but those assets are not working for them. So what this port lease does, and the industrial zone the Chinese are willing to build, is to give the opportunity to transform the lives of those people. These were the heartlands of the JVP insurrection, and that was for a reason. And this gives us a chance to transform those areas. So this is not just a port lease. It's about transforming a lagging region in the country where we've had youth unrest on 2 occasions. So I think we need to look at the big picture. So that's roughly what Sri Lanka is going to look like. I should also say in the north, there is a Palali airport and
Chief Minister of the Northern Province, C.V. Vigneshwaran, gave his strongest hint yet of a possible rift between him and the Tamil National Alliance, saying that the leadership of the party has failed to live up to the expectations of the Tamil people and therefore has failed to do their duty. Speaking at a media briefing in Jaffna yesterday, the Chief Minister stressed the need for a new political force in the north.
I
would like to seek your views on starting a new party. Starting a new party is easy, but maintaining is not. It will take some time to register a new party. Also, the question under which logo you are competing in the election is also there. I have to say that the Tamil people in the north have lost faith in the leadership of the Tamil National Alliance owing to their actions. I was asked about my views on what measures we should take regarding Geneva. The Northern Provincial Council arrived at a decision, and it reads that since the government is unable to or unwilling to implement the UNHRC Resolution 30/1 and 34/1, if Sri Lanka fails to fully implement the UNHRC resolutions before March next year, Sri Lanka should be referred to the International Criminal Court or to a specially created international tribunal for the island nation, or to be referred to the UN Security Council.
In the meantime, addressing a media briefing in Jaffna today, TNA parliamentarian M.A. Sumandiran moved to clarify media reports which quoted him as saying that the country does not need a federal constitution.
Saying that the speech that I made in Gaul with regard to the new constitution, that I had said that we don't need a federal constitution. I need to clarify this. Our approach to the new constitution has been that we don't use contentious words. So, as everyone knows, interim report very specifically desists from using the word federal or unitary. Because those are contentious words, we have chosen an approach that does not use either of these words. Nevertheless, our position is that powers must be shared in such a way as in any federal constitution, that we don't insist on any label. It does not have to have the federal label, but we don't also accept a unitary label for this. The main or the important issue is the contents of the constitution, where power sharing arrangements are made in a very meaningful manner.
Speaking further, the parliamentarian also voiced his opinion on who should hold the power in the north and east.
State power must be properly distributed in the north and the east. It should be given to the person elected by the public and not the governor. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa believes lack of cooperation from the government is causing the collapse of the island's gem and jewellery industry. The former president touched on the subject today while speaking to media at the International Gem and Jewellery Exhibition, which got underway on Thursday. This industry has collapsed. Its enthusiasm has now faded owing to taxation. They should be more careful about this, since this industry can earn us millions. This industry is collapsing owing to the lack of cooperation from the government. The rally will be a huge success, and it will be the most remarkable day in history. Don't think about political divisions. This government has committed injustice, so everybody can join us. Not at all. No one is boycotting this. No one from the joint opposition is in fact boycotting this. The prices of 10 expensive cancer drugs, 13 other medical drugs and 2 medical devices are reduced from midnight today. Minister of Health Dr. Rajitha Senaratne said that the relevant Gazette notification has been issued, bringing into effect the price reductions. Now, accordingly, the tender price of 10 expensive cancer drugs have been brought under control, and the maximum retail price of 13 selected drugs have been regulated. In addition to this, the maximum retail price of blood glucose meters and blood glucose test strips have also been regulated. The 13 selected drugs subjected to price reduction include antibiotics, drugs for neurological diseases, asthma, epilepsy patients, diabetes medicine including insulin, and drugs to control cholesterol. The minister made this announcement during the opening ceremony of the 39th outlet of the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation at the Peradeniya University premises this morning. Now let's take a look at some other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
The farming community in the Polonnaruwa district and the areas of the eastern province are affected by a plant hopper infestation. Farmers urge the government to provide compensation for their destroyed crop owing to the pest. 4 elephants roaming the Somavatiya National Park have drowned after stepping on a layer of moss on the river Periyaru, a branch of river Mahavali. The villagers suspect that these elephants could have died 4 days ago. CCTV footage recorded a 16-year-old student cycling along the Malpettava area in Ambalantota being hit by a vehicle. The student, who sustained injuries, has been admitted to hospital. The Independent Legal Students Movement has protested against the election irregularities during the election of the Law College in Halsdorf. Due to the principal of the Law College not taking action regarding the matter, he was held at his office by the students.
We're going in for a small break with business news on the other side. Stay tuned.
Watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, Prima Ceylon Private Limited increased the price of wheat flour by 5 rupees per kilogram with effect from midnight yesterday. Accordingly, the new price of a kilogram of Prima wheat flour will be 100 rupees. In the meantime, bakery owners announced that with the increase of wheat flour prices, the price of bakery products, including bread, will have to be increased. Now, the Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, is positive that Sri Lanka is on track to have a fully fledged flexible inflation targeting regime by the end of first quarter of next year. He was speaking at the 68th anniversary celebrations of the Central Bank held recently, of which the oration was delivered by the former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. W.A. Vijayawardena. Also speaking at the flexible inflation targeting regime, Dr. Vijayawardena emphasized the importance of the Central Bank having adequate freedom to control interest rates.
To control inflation directly, Central Bank should have complete freedom to set the interest rates. To set the interest rate, there should be statutorily, Central Bank will have to be given powers by Parliament that Central Bank should have the freedom to set interest. Now, fortunately for us, the present government in its Vision 2025 has accepted that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka should introduce the flexible inflation targeting as its monetary policy platform. And the government has pledged that it would introduce the necessary regulations and also amend the Monetary Law Act to facilitate the Central Bank to do that. So in that exercise, probably we may be able to maintain the independence of the Central Bank in a proper sense. Then of course we have the issue. When you give too much of powers to anyone, there's a tendency that the power can be abused also. Therefore, it is always necessary that the independence should be accompanied by accountability.
There are important initiatives. Arguably, the flagship initiative is the introduction of the flexible inflation targeting regime and the amendment of the Monetary Law Act to accommodate such monetary policy formulation regime. And we feel we're on track to have a fully fledged inflation targeting regime, a flexible inflation targeting regime by the end of the first quarter of next year. Of course, all these things need political blessing, but we've got cabinet approval for the broad framework, and also we will be putting in place a legal framework which will make it not possible to have fiscal forbearance.
Now, taking a quick glance at one of the local stories, the grand finale of Derana 60 Plus, a reality show dedicated for senior citizens of the country, will be held at the Janakala Centre in Battaramulla tomorrow. Now, the artists were seen practicing for their performances in anticipation of tomorrow's spectacle. 3 contestants will compete against each other tomorrow under the Most Talented Singer category. The most popular singer will also be chosen through SMSs of the general public. The reality experience will be telecast live on TV Derana from 7:30 p.m. onwards. Time to take a look at what's happening around the globe. Now, musicians, family, friends and fans said their final goodbyes to Aretha Franklin at her funeral in Detroit yesterday. Lasting over 7 hours, the memorial was both mournful and celebratory, with the crowd breaking into a spontaneous dance of praise at one point. Franklin died earlier this month of pancreatic cancer at the age of 76.
A Detroit church swelled with gospel music yesterday for the funeral of Aretha Franklin, driving mourners to their feet to clap and sing ahead of tributes to the Queen of Soul by former US President Bill Clinton and singer Stevie Wonder. Clinton, who attended the funeral service with his wife Hillary Clinton, described himself as a Franklin groupie long before he became president. In his speech, he recalled attending Franklin's last public performance in New York.
My most enduring memory of her was almost happenstance, for I was there at what turned out to be the last public singing she ever did. At Elton John's AIDS benefit last year, you know, old gray-haired guy, so sure enough, she heard I was there and she summoned me back. And she's sitting there, I mean, obviously desperately ill, gaunt. She stood right up and said, "How you doing, baby?" I said, "Well, I'm doing better now." And she said, "Well, look at me. I finally got thin again." It took a lot of guts to say that. So this is what I think you should remember in this time about this magnificent woman. She worked her can off to get where she was. She took the gifts God gave her, and she kept getting a little bigger every day. So it's the key to freedom. God bless you, Aretha. We love you.
In the evening, the casket of the Queen of Soul was interred in a mausoleum at Woodlawn Cemetery in Detroit, just over a fortnight after her death from pancreatic cancer at the age of 76.
The government of Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega has ordered a team of United Nations Commission for Human Rights to leave. The expulsion comes days after a critical report into human rights in Nicaragua during months of anti-government protests. The chief of the UN mission said his team would continue to monitor the situation from abroad.
Nicaragua's government yesterday ordered the expulsion of a United Nations human rights delegation 2 days after the body released a report condemning repression and abuses committed by President Daniel Ortega's administration. The Nicaraguan government sent a letter to the UN delegation yesterday ordering that they leave the country within 2 hours. Earlier in the week, a United Nations report documented human rights violations in violence-stricken Nicaragua, including the disproportionate use of force and extrajudicial killings by the Nicaraguan police, disappearances, widespread arbitrary detentions, and instances of torture and sexual violence in detention centers.
Let's take a look at some other stories emerging around the world.
Astronauts aboard the International Space Station conducted repair work on Thursday on one of 2 Russian Soyuz spacecraft attached to the orbiting outpost after a leak caused a dip in station pressure. Crew members of Expedition 56 reported a hole about 2 millimeters in diameter in the upper section of the Soyuz MS-9 spacecraft that is attached to a module of the Russian segment of the station. According to NASA, the crew was never in danger and returned to their regular schedule yesterday. A fuzzy, bright-eyed baby mandrill is now on display at the Bronx Zoo in New York City, the first mandrill born at the zoo since 2013. Mandrills are one of the largest monkey species but are classified as vulnerable by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. The mandrill population is on the decline because of hunting and habitat loss. A leopard cat that intruded a villager's house and got accidentally hurt was rescued by local vets in the Lunaping country in North China's Hebei province. The animal was caught by a trap while stealing chickens in the villager's house. Leopard cats are Class B animals under state protection in China with high scientific and economic values, and they are put on the Chinese Red List of endangered animal species. A group of orcas, or better known as killer whales, were rescued and placed back into water along the Argentine coast after the tide took them ashore recently. Killer whales are considered among the smartest of whales, and they average in 19 feet in length and weigh over 3,500 kilograms.
Now, former Presidents Barack Obama and George W. Bush are among mourners at a service for Senator John McCain at Washington's National Cathedral. The Vietnam War hero, who became one of America's most high-profile politicians, died a week ago from brain cancer at the age of 81. President Donald Trump is not attending the memorial service. The two Republicans had major differences, both personal and political. McCain's family made it abundantly clear that Trump was not welcome at memorial services in the state of Arizona, which McCain represented as senator, and Washington, or at Sunday's private burial service in Annapolis, Maryland, at the U.S. Naval Academy. We're going to move in for a short break, and on the other side, sports news awaits.
Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Time for sports. Now, Sri Lanka suffered yet another heartache at the Asian Games as the country lost its only remaining medal hope as the country's seven-a-side rugby team lost to Japan in the semi-finals. The score read 12-10 in favour of Japan. Now, moving on to other sports. In cricket, Sri Lanka pace bowler Lasith Malinga is recalled for the national one-day international squad after a year-long hiatus. The fast bowler is included in the squad named for the Asia Cup set to get underway on the 15th.
Minister of Sports Faiza Mustafa today signed off on the 60-member one-day international squad for the looming Asia Cup. Angelo Matthews will captain the side in the tournament. The squad also features Kusal Janit Pereira, Kusal Mendes, Upul Taranga, Dinesh Chandimal, Danushka Gunatilaka, Thisara Pereira, Dasun Shanaka, Dhananjay De Silva, Akila Dhananjaya, Dilruwan Pereira, Amila Aponsu, Kasun Rajita, Surangal Akmal, Dushmanta Chamira and Lasith Malinga.
Now, moving on to tennis, world number one Rafael Nadal was made to work hard in a grueling battle of baseline ground strokes yesterday at the Flushing Meadows. Argentine Juan Martín del Potro was also in action, while the Williams sisters battled it out for a place in the last 16.
Rafael Nadal has feasted on Russian opposition in the past, but Karen Khachanov nearly served up a major US Open upset yesterday, forcing the world number one to rally for a breathless 5-7, 7-5, 7-6, 7-6 third-round win. Not since 2011 has Nadal lost to a Russian, but his string of 16 victories stretching back to 2011 looked ready to end along with his US Open title defense when big-hitting Khachanov came out with guns blazing. The win sets up a fourth-round meeting with Nicolas Basilashvili and the Spaniard. Former champion Juan Martín del Potro meanwhile put on an assured display to register a straight sets victory over Spanish veteran Fernando Verdasco in their third-round encounter at Flushing Meadows. The third-seeded Argentine has yet to drop a set in New York and managed to keep the record intact with a 7-5, 7-6, 6-3 win. Next up for Del Potro is Croatian 20th seed Bona Koric. Meanwhile, in the women's draw, defending champion Sloane Stephens kept alive her bid for back-to-back titles in New York, defeating former world number one Victoria Azarenka 6-3, 6-4 in a gritty match to set up a fourth-round showdown with Elise Mertens. Stephens will look for redemption when she faces Mertens tomorrow, after losing to the Belgian at the Cincinnati Masters earlier this month. The on-court rivalry between sisters Venus and Serena Williams took another turn yesterday when Venus crushed her older sister 6-1, 6-2. The 23-time Grand Slam champion, looking to equal Margaret Court's all-time record of 24, needed just 71 minutes to win and later described her performance as the best match since she returned to action. The 36-year-old will play Estonia's Kaia Kanepi in the last 16.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. And before we go, we thought of dedicating a piece for Princess Diana, whose legacy is often overshadowed by her untimely death. Her 21st death anniversary was marked yesterday with people placing various tributes outside Kensington Palace. Hope you enjoy. Bye-bye.
Princess Diana was not an ordinary girl plucked like Cinderella to marry Prince Charles, the heir to the throne. In fact, she was from a very noble aristocratic family, the Spencer family. Princess Diana was a 19-year-old preschool teacher when she got married to Prince Charles. Their wedding ceremony was seen by 750 million TV viewers, and within a year into their marriage, Prince William was born. After a few years, her fairy tale marriage began to fade as she got to know the affair between Prince Charles and Camilla Parker. The princess officially ended her marriage with Prince Charles in August of 1996. She was more than a princess and a style icon. Princess Diana worked tirelessly on behalf of charities around the world, using her fame to raise awareness of a number of important humanitarian issues, including HIV and landmine clearance, changing the face of British monarchy. On August 31st of 1997, Princess Diana was killed in a car accident in France, along with her alleged boyfriend Dodi Al-Fayed. It is reported that she was chased by paparazzi and her driver, who was speeding away from them, was drunk. The funeral of Princess Diana attracted 2.5 billion television viewers from around the world. She goes down in history as a genuine character and forever be the people's princess.